What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, bringing you the second installment of Dynasty Decisions this week, which we'll be taking the second batch of questions. You got the first batch yesterday. We're going to go through over the second batch of them. And again, if you guys want more information on to get onto a future Dynasty Decisions video, just DM myself or Butch over on Twitter. You guys can see that on the screen, or on Discord, your questions, your team on an Excel file, and we'll make sure to get you guys involved in future episodes. But before we get into this episode, Corey, how you doing today?
Yeah, if you guys enjoy any of the content we're putting out, hit the like button, comment, subscribe. If you guys are new to the channel, we know there's about 50-60% of you every video that we do that are not subscribed to the video. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I promise we will win you a championship. And if we won you a championship last year, I want you to comment down below if we won you a championship so that new viewers can see that we're actually men of our word. So either way, I'm doing good. Again, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy. We're going to hit the intro and we're going to get into the first team.
All right, so let's start off with that first team. As Corey mentioned, this is from Jake Elder. It is a 12-team half-point PPR tight end premium super flex league. So you guys can see the team on the screen, but let me read it off as well. His quarterbacks, his starters are Mahomes and Lawrence, with Fitzpatrick in particular on the bench. Running backs, you got Ronald Jones, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon in particular. Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Henry Ruggs, Bateman, and others. And at tight end, you got Cole Kmet slated as the starter. So he says in here, it is the startup year, and it had a separate veteran and rookie draft. So what's your initial thoughts on this team before we get into the deals that he made?
Yeah, so it looks like he went pretty young with this team. His wide receiver core is young. He's got two rookie running backs. He's got Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence. Those are some young quarterbacks, obviously. And then he's got a young tight end core. So I would say overall, this is not a team that you need to compete with right away. You gave yourself a lot of flexibility to be able to potentially punt this to year 2, to year 3 of the Dynasty League and compete at that point. So overall, this is usually a good strategy to go into a Dynasty League with. Obviously, you want to win the league anytime that you're in it, but you also want to make sure that you have that longevity factor, because some people, and you said this is one of your you're new to Dynasty or your second Dynasty League, a lot of people will go into Dynasty Leagues and draft it like a redraft, and they'll take Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry and all these aging assets and not realize that it's a longevity, it's a long-term game as well. So I think he did a good job balancing some youth and some win now assets.
Yep, 100%. So we can get onto the deals he made. And the first one, you lucked out. You lucked out that Akers ended up tearing his Achilles. But either way, it probably would have been a fair deal if Akers was healthy. But now that Akers is out, listen, you got Patrick Mahomes and Trey Sermon in exchange for Cam Akers, Terry McLaurin, and Kirk Cousins. Absolutely phenomenal deal looking back on it.
Yeah, I would say that rookie 112 and Kirk Cousins probably cancel each other out pretty easily there. And then at that point, you're looking at a running back coming off of an Achilles tear who is probably going to be in a committee now for the rest of his career because coaches probably aren't going to trust him to handle a full workload. And you got Terry McLaurin, who's a great young receiver, but we're talking Patrick freaking Mahomes here. You made out like a bandit in this deal.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can get on to the next deal, and you received the rookie 104 in exchange for the 401 and the 712, which turned into Eckler and Wentz. So I want to hear your thoughts about it before I go into it.
Yeah, this is, for your team, the way that your team is constructed, and I think he did end up moving Najee Harris again after this, but at the time when you made this trade, the way your team was constructed, I would say that this is probably a good deal for you. Austin Eckler is a 27-year-old running back. Yeah, he's a pass catcher, so he's probably not going to age like a 27-year-old running back normally would. Carson Wentz, he's a guy that's kind of on the downturn of his career. At least that's what it seems. Could he bounce back? Sure, but he's already dealing with injury issues in camp right now. So overall, getting that young running back that secured 3, 4, 5 years of a workload, I think that's a good deal for you, especially given the position of your team.
Yeah, especially when you consider the fact that he ended up moving that rookie 104. So if you compared the deal, he basically traded Eckler and Wentz in exchange for Deebo Samuel, Javonte Williams, and Rondale Moore. And when you contextualize it like that, I do probably prefer your package here, because Javonte Williams in your situation is probably just about decently even value, probably still lean Eckler, but they're similar values because you get the youth of Javonte Williams versus the win now of Eckler. And then when you compare Deebo Samuel and Rondale Moore, I would prefer over Carson Wentz. So I do think that's a good swap on your end.
Yeah, I think overall, though, when I look at those two deals, because they are closely related, obviously, I think I would have just kept Najee Harris, because I think Najee Harris would have made your team it's a high-end asset, especially after this year. Like, we have concerns about Najee Harris's offensive line this year, but we have no concerns about his volume. We have no concerns about his ability, his receiving ability, his 3-down capabilities. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a good organization. They're going to figure their offensive line and their quarterback situation out eventually. And if it's year 2, year 3 of Najee Harris's career, then we could be talking about a guy that is the 101 in Dynasty, right? Like, he could legitimately be that level of player once they get a young quarterback and once they get a good offensive line in front of him.
However, though, I absolutely love what he did with the Debo and the 205. And if you actually contextualize it and you think Javonte Williams and Rashad Bateman versus Najee Harris, I would rather Javonte and Bateman at that point. Then when you compare Javonte and Bateman versus Carson Wentz and Eckler, it's probably really close. I'd probably, from your sake, lean the side that you got. But overall, what are your thoughts on this next move and the overall kind of sum of parts that he moved?
Yeah, Bateman for Debo in the 205, which ended up being Rondale Moore. I'll gladly take Rashad Bateman there. I think overall, when you look at the 201 versus Debo in the 205, I'd probably lean Debo in the 205 there. But given the context of what players they actually were, I'll take Bateman, because to me, he's a significant tier above Rondale Moore, and I actually have him ranked higher than Debo Samuel as well.
Yep, I agree with that as well. Final trade here, he ended up trading. He sent the 209 and in return got the 212 and the 301. Love this move for you. Listen, Tony's a fine player, but I have De'Ami Brown straight up ranked ahead of him. And the fact that you're able to get an extra pick on top of De'Ami Brown, phenomenal deal here for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think De'Ami Brown is ranked as like my 206, 207 in Superflex. So the fact that you got him at 301 is great value, basically. And you traded away the 209, which Kadarius Toney, yeah, he's a little bit. I think he's a little bit slept on to some degree. 209 is probably appropriate value for him, but like you said, I'd rather have De'Ami Brown, and you ended up getting Chuba Hubbard on top of that, who's a great young handcuff at the very least.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, anything else you want to add, or should we move on to the next team?
No, we can move on to the next team.
All right, yeah. He says too what other moves we should do with this, but honestly, I would just let this team mellow, and maybe if Ronald Jones gets off to a solid start, you could probably flip him midseason.
Yeah. This is a 2022, 2023 team. I think you just let your young guys develop, continue to add young talent, and you should be good to go by the time 2022, 2023 season comes along. Yep,
absolutely. So the next team we got Jared, and is that Jared from the Discord?
Yeah, it's Jared from the Discord.
Yeah, so we got Jared from the Discord, a 12-team half PPR Superflex league. You could take it away with the team and what we should do with it.
Yeah, so he's got Dak Fitzpatrick and Justin Fields as his starting quarterbacks. He's got Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, Darius Geis for some reason, A.J. Dillon, and some other running backs there. He's got Julio, Godwin, Evans, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman of note, and then he has Travis Kelce at tight end. Of course, he has Tim Tebow because Jared is a Tim Tebow believer. But basically what he's wondering is, I guess he had Cam Akers as well, and he's probably on his IR spot or whatever right now. So he was planning to compete, and I would say if you had Akers, that was looking very promising, obviously. But now without Akers, you're stuck with Javonte Williams as your RB2. We don't necessarily know what his role is going to be right away. A.J. Dillon's your RB3. We could be in a situation where you're kind of playing like hero RB because Dalvin Cook is your guy, and you're kind of patchworking your RB2 spot. So what are your thoughts overall on what he can do to continue to make this a contender, or should he pivot?
Hollywood Brown, see if you can get a cheap 1 year, 2 year type of running. Like if you can flip Hollywood Brown straight up for Myles Gaskin right now, that would be the type of move I look for. This is a team ready to compete. You have Dalvin, you have Julio, Godwin, Kelce, Dak. This is a team that is clearly in win now. If you tried to move any of those veteran pieces, you wouldn't get remotely the type of package that you would if you just held on to him and tried to compete. Hollywood Brown's the name I'm looking at, saying, you know what? He's a young receiver. He had about 750, 800 yards last year. Some upside, some appeal to him. See if you could flip that into a ready win now RB2 type of piece.
I also am considering moving one of the Bucs receivers because you have both of them, right? You have Godwin and Evans. You could potentially try and get better than a Myles Gaskin with Godwin or Evans. Maybe you go out and acquire David Montgomery or something a little bit better than that potentially, using Chris Godwin, using Mike Evans. I think you might be able to get a tier above David Montgomery. So like, DeAndre Swift type running back for Chris Godwin. If you added maybe a pick, maybe you add something here and there. If you went Godwin and A.J. Dillon and tried to get DeAndre Swift or even, Antonio Gibson or something like that, that would be potentially a move that you could make. Obviously, that's going to be a tough move to pull off because I'm not sure the owner's going to be willing to part with those running backs. But overall, I think at the very least, I think I like Danny's idea. You go out and try and float Hollywood Brown, see if you can get a Mike Davis, see if you can get a Myles Gaskin. See if you can even get like a patchwork Ronald Jones or Zach Moss or something, just so you have something in your.
I wouldn't mind Darrell Henderson either.
Because you have Akers too. That makes sense to go out and get Henderson.
Yeah, absolutely. So those would be the types of moves I would make. Yeah, but yeah, you said planning to compete. This is definitely a compete now, bro. Squad. Like you have to.
You're probably going to lose way too much value if you tried to tear this thing down, to be honest, because you're not going to get appropriate Dalvin Cook value. You're not going to get appropriate Julio Jones value. You're probably better off trying to salvage this thing and deal with the Cam Akers injury, at least for the time being.
Yep, I agree. So we can get on to the next team. It's a 10-team Superflex in brackets this year. So you can take it away with Caleb's team.
Yeah, so the Superflex transition happened this year. So it just became a Superflex this season. We've talked about, sometimes teams are going to Superflex in 2023. So this was the first year of the Superflex. And you can see Caleb's been taking advantage of this for a couple years now because he's got Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Justin Fields as his main quarterbacks this year. He also has Deshaun Watson on the back burner, who, when he comes back, we all know what Deshaun Watson is going to be. Also has Mac Jones and Sam Darnold. So he's got 6 starting quarterbacks, 5 if you exclude Deshaun Watson for this year. And then at running back, you can see he's absolutely loaded. CMC, DCMC with Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, Damian Harris, Cam Akers on his IR slot. Wide receiver, he's got A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, De'Ami Brown. Also has Michael Thomas out of commission right now. He has George Kittle and Noah Fant at tight end. This is a loaded team, right? Like I don't think you guys need us to tell you that. This is a very good team. It's a very good roster. It's very deep. Basically, even in a 10-team league, I think this is probably the best team in the league. I think we can both agree on that. Yeah,
and his question says, what moves are needed to win now? The moves needed to win now is to set your lineup every week.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think what he's more so looking for, I would say he's got the Cam Akers, Deshaun Watson, Michael Thomas outlined in orange because he has them listed as concerning situations. I think we'd both agree with that.
Yeah.
I think Michael Thomas, there's absolutely nothing I would do with him, right? Because your team's a win now team. Michael Thomas will come back eventually during the season. And I think whenever he comes back, that's when you take full advantage of him. And then even if it's like a totally like write-off year for him this year, it's just like last year, injury riddled all season. This time next year, he's still going to be worth a lot of value. And he's probably going to have maybe even a new quarterback or a solidified quarterback at the very least.
I mean, a couple things I look at too, like, again, if somebody's willing to give you like a future one for Cam Akers because they think, oh, you know what, he's going to come back and I'm getting him for a value here. That's the type of move I look at, recoup value, because you still have a really good running back core aside from him. And Deshaun Watson, if somebody's willing to give you Ryan Tannehill straight up as a contender this year.
Oh, I would not move Deshaun Watson. There's no way I would move him personally. Yeah.
Really?
The reason I wouldn't move Deshaun Watson is because you have so many starting quarterbacks, right? Everybody's realizing probably, especially once we get into the season, that this is now a super flex league. They have to start 2 quarterbacks every league, or they should start 2 quarterbacks every week. I think the guys that I'd be floating in your quarterback core are your cheaper guys, your Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, because you have high ceiling options, right? When Deshaun Watson's back and healthy, or not back and healthy, but back on an NFL roster, him, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert are going to be your cornerstone quarterbacks. And you also have Justin Fields too. So I'd be looking to get rid of Sam Darnold specifically right now because he does have some buzz behind his name because he's going into the first season with the Carolina Panthers. If you can sell somebody on him having the next Ryan Tannehill type season, that's who I'd be looking to sell at quarterback.
That's actually fair. To be quite honest, I didn't even notice Justin Herbert. Top of the team. But so I was assuming his quarterback core going into this year was Burrow, Fields, Mac Jones, Darnold. I'm like, I don't know if I would be comfortable. I'd probably want like a Ryan Tannehill to head this group. But yeah, I agree. Like if you have Herbert and Burrow as your supposed starters with upside with Fields on the bench, like ship off Mac Jones, ship off Sam Darnold, and you have Deshaun Watson basically as a luxury at that point. Like you're just
waiting in the wing until maybe you win the championship this year and you got Deshaun Watson coming back next year and he might be your QB1 on your team, even as good as Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are. If Deshaun Watson's the QB in Carolina or Denver next year, he's probably the best quarterback on your team.
Yep, absolutely. So anything else you want to add here? Can we get on to the next team?
He also talked about a trade real quick that I just want to talk about. He said he received Joe Burrow in exchange for DJ Chark and a 2022 second. And again, he said this was prior to the draft, so maybe this was prior to the Superflex switch. But either way, even if you knew that this was going to be a Superflex league in the foreseeable future, this is an easy smash Joe Burrow side, right? Like Joe Burrow as a quarterback himself is just worth way more than a wide receiver, especially a wide receiver like Chark, who, while I believe in Chark, he's still only like a top 25, 30 dynasty wide receiver. He's not like a top 10 dynasty wide receiver.
Yeah, like if that, honestly, and that, like, I feel like we're optimistic on him, but even like as is, like that's like a good case scenario for him if that's the case. Joe Burrow, by all accounts, is at minimum a top 12 dynasty quarterback, and you can make the case that he's a good amount higher than that too. I mean, this is a young, ascending, former first overall pick and one of the highest volume passing offenses in the league. Like, this is a guy you want on your team. So I absolutely agree there, but we can get on to the next trade, and that's going to be from Nick Tannacore. So he ended up moving off of Kyler Murray. We told him in recent past, maybe see what you can get for Kyler Murray, because I think it was a younger team that he was talking about. But this is the type of move that we're talking about here. He ended up getting Zach Wilson, a 2022 and 2023 first-round pick, and a 2022 and 2023 second-round pick. So 1 and 2 in both of the next few years, in addition to Zach Wilson, in exchange for Kyler Murray and what I view as a bunch of fodder.
Yeah, Tim Patrick, Josh Kelly, Jack Doyle, like those guys are all worth maybe third, fourth round rookie picks. Like they're not worth anything. And then you got 2 fourths and a 2022 third. Like I'm assuming Nick is rebuilding. Maybe that's why he's selling Kyler Murray. This is exactly what you want to happen if you're trying to sell a premium asset like Kyler Murray. You get a young quarterback who I have in the top 15 in my rankings, and you get 4 picks in the first 2 rounds of the next 2 drafts. Like that is exactly what you want if you're tearing your team down and rebuilding. I think you did a phenomenal job here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They're fantastic move. And again, we mentioned appreciating asset 101. Guess what? Those are rookie picks. Every single time you're going to be able to flip rookie picks for more than you acquired them for, because the time value of them, as the draft gets closer and closer to the time where those picks become rookie players, guess what? That 2022 first right now is going to be a lot more appealing. So absolutely love this move for you. And heck, who knows? Maybe that 2022 first ends up mid-table and you're able to flip it for a 2023 first and a young ascending player, a 2023 first and a couple second-round picks. Like you have the flexibility to be able to make moves like that. So I really like this move from your part.
Yeah, totally agree. So let's move on to Native House Livingston. He has it's like a keeper scenario, but it is a long-term keeper, so it's kind of like a dynasty thing. So we figured we include it. Basically, he said this is the first year of a PPR keeper league. It's a 10-man league, 7 keeper picks, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers and a tight end, and a flex is the starting roster. And then all quarterback touchdowns are worth 6 points. So 6 point per passing touchdowns. It is a 2 quarterback league. So basically, he traded a 4th and a 6th to move up into the second round so that his first 4 picks are 108, 203, 210, and 308. So what are your thoughts on that trade overall? What me and you are more so on the camp of trading down at the high end of drafts, but I think that value that he gave up basically is probably about equal to a second round pick.
I mean, especially because it's a keeper league and it's not a dynasty league, those higher picks are more valuable because, speaking here from a dynasty perspective, you want as much depth as possible. Whereas since you're only keeping 7 keepers here, it's more valuable to get the higher value keepers. So I do like the move from your part, and you end up having the 108, the 203, the 210, and the 308 here. You're going to have 4 of the top overall players in your keeper league, and really 3 other keeper spots. Like, they don't even need to be as good at that point when you have that many studs in your team.
Right. And I think when we look at these picks one by one, he basically said, should I go with this player, that player kind of thing. So I think this is kind of a fun exercise. Just go through our rankings almost. So at that 108 spot, he's looking at Saquon or Tyreek Hill. Which one of those 2 guys would you want for the next 5 years?
Barkley.
Yeah, I think it's easily Barkley. 1, he's a running back, which has inherently more value. 2, he's the younger player, and you get him for 5 years. And 3, I think he has the higher ceiling in terms of league winning upside.
Agreed. Also, it says here it's a 2 quarterback league. You mentioned in the pre-show that it was a 1 quarterback.
Yeah, I guess it is a 2 quarterback league. So let's go through this second scenario, knowing it is a 2 quarterback league. DK, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, or Dak Prescott at that 203 pick. In a 2 quarterback, 6 point per passing touchdown league, that is Dak Prescott.
Easily Dak. Like, not even a question. Like, I personally have Dak as a mid to late first rounder in regular super flex. Now you're talking about that it's a 2 quarterback with 6 point passing touchdowns of a quarterback that's probably going to throw, we'll say modestly 40 touchdowns this year in a 17-game sample. That's Dak. That's Dak easily, in my opinion.
Right. And with that 203, 210 area, you might be able to still get one of those receivers, those DK, Diggs, Devontae. One of those guys might fall. Devontae Adams, now that Aaron Rodgers is back, probably not going to fall. But in a 5-year keeper league, you might still be able to get Adams at the 210 because we don't really know what Adams situation is going forward after this season. And I'm sure you can still trade these players too. So you could always just draft Adams with that 210, use him this year, and then trade him when there's some more uncertainty next year and potentially win yourself a championship this year. So a couple more things that he asked. He says, do you think 4 straight wide receivers to start this draft is doomed to fail? So if at that 108, 203, 210, and 308, let's say he went with Tyreek, Diggs, Devontae, and CeeDee Lamb at 308. Like, is that doomed to fail if you start your keeper format that way?
Well, in my opinion, that wouldn't align with my overall value in terms of best player available. So I do think it would be doomed to fail because I wouldn't take any wide receiver, no matter who, at the 108 or even the 203 for the most part, honestly. Like, there's just so much talent at the top at the running back and quarterback position, especially in a 2-quarterback, 6-point passing touchdown league, that I'm probably not even thinking about a wide receiver until maybe a good value falls to me at the 210. Aside from that, those first 2 picks, in my opinion, have to be allocated for either quarterback or running back.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. And then at that 308 spot, he's looking between CeeDee Lamb, George Kittle, or Antonio Gibson. I think this is going to be Antonio Gibson for both of us because we both have Antonio Gibson in the first round of our Dynasty rankings. So if he's there at the 308, you snatch up that value and you basically run to the bank because that's a great pick. As much as CeeDee Lamb and George Kittle are going to be great pieces for you, I would still take Gibson over both of them. So
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, exactly. So at the last question he has here is Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, or maybe Diggs if they fall. So Jefferson. Again, with that 210, the 203, he's basically thinking like, if those elite wide receivers fall, should I go with them? Again, it's going to depend who's on the board. Maybe there's a tier break at running back. If you're deciding between Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and the best quarterback on the board is Russell Wilson, maybe I would probably go with Justin Jefferson in that case. But at the 210, there's probably a good chance that where you're thinking about taking Justin Jefferson is more so in the area of guys like Antonio Gibson or like DeAndre Swift, for example, or even quarterbacks like Justin Herbert or something like that. So to me, I probably would lean running back and quarterback early, see what you can get in terms of value to fall to at wide receiver. But for the most part, I'm probably leaning those positions early.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can move on to the next trade, and that's going to be from Big Al. And he's pretty adamant in the Discord because he wanted to get younger. He didn't really have any staple wide receiver, but this to me is a panic move. He traded Alvin Kamara straight up for DK Metcalf, and I understand like DK Metcalf, one of the youngest 23-year-old ascending talents in the league, but from a strict value standpoint, I get it. Kamara is viewed as a declining asset because he's a running back, but startup value right now, there's a 1.5 round discrepancy. You probably could have gotten a good amount more attached to Metcalf if you're going to move off Kamara, in my opinion.
Yeah, and speaking on Metcalf as the player too, like I've expressed my opinion saying I don't want to trade for DK Metcalf right now until I find out more clarity on the Russell Wilson situation. I don't think this magically goes away, and I think the only way it does is if the Seahawks win the Super Bowl this year, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And even if, let's just say hypothetically it was Justin Jefferson or any wide receiver you want to put at like in that spot, a younger ascending talent, like how would you view the trade?
I still am taking Kamara because I think Kamara is an elite running back talent who has shown no signs of declining. Has not really shown any signs that he's wearing down in terms of injury. And he's not a guy that gets us a ton of touches anyway. I talk about career touches for guys like Ezekiel Elliott and guys like Derrick Henry, but Alvin Kamara is under 1,000 career touches in his career so far. That's like nuts. He's been in the league for 5 years. He doesn't have 1,000 career touches yet. This is a guy that doesn't touch the ball 400 times a season. He's a 250, 300 touch running back.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely nuts. And I agree. Again, if it was like Metcalf and a pick or Metcalf and a younger piece, like then you could probably consider it. Like right now, if it was like, I probably would have asked for something like Metcalf and Ayuk for Kamara. That'd be about the asking price. I know it sounds steep to some, but that's about what it would be. So overall, I understand the premise. You want to get younger, but the value just isn't there in this particular deal.
Yeah, and Danny talked about startup value. To me, Alvin Kamara is a top 6 pick for me in Dynasty. He's like my RB 3 or 4. Like I have him right in that JT Saquon range. Like he is right there for me with those guys because I think he's that good.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. He's at minimum a top 10 pick for me as well. Like once you mix in the quarterback. So yeah, I agree. We can get on to the next team, and that's going to be from Kev Helms. It's a 12-team Superflex PPR league. And he basically says here, it's going into the inaugural season and just finished a startup that had a ton of pre-draft trades and pick swaps. He sold some mid-round picks for more early picks, then made a few moves post-draft. He feels like a contender, but let me know what we think to upgrade. So this is a team. You guys can see it on the screen, but quarterbacks, he's got Lamar, Cousins, Fitz, and Trask. Running backs, JT, Swift, Mixon in particular. Wide receivers, Tyreek, AJ Brown, Tyler Lockett, Corey Davis, Tyler Boyd, Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall. Great wide receiver core for the record. And at tight end, you got Dallas Goedert, Rob Gronkowski, and Dalton Schultz. And he was able to also coop an extra first round pick in 2022 with this team. So overall, for this being right after the startup and getting an extra first on top of this team, you did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has his first or his second in 2023, which is probably, we're going to get to his trades in a second. So that's probably where we got that. But overall, yeah, you got 2 1s next year. I would say this is a win now operation, right? You have immediacy assets, basically, is the way I would describe it. Because you have Lamar Jackson, like Jonathan Taylor, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, like these guys are in their primes, ready to perform for fantasy for you. So yeah, I think you're ready to compete right away.
Yep. I agree. So the next trade, or the first trade of the video that he did, he sent away Darnell Mooney and Zach Wilson, and in return received Kenny Golladay, a 2022 first and a 2023 second. So what are your thoughts on the deal when just looking at it right now?
Give me Mooney and Wilson. To me, Wilson's the best asset in the trade.
Easily,
and
yeah.
I think Golladay and a first for Wilson, and then the 2023 second, probably about equivalent to Darnell Mooney, I would say. Yeah, Golladay and a first, probably equivalent value for a starting quarterback on a rookie deal that I really believe in. But to me, I just have question marks about Kenny Golladay. If this was a different receiver in that range, if this is Brandon Ayuk, if this is somebody like else, I'd probably make this trade. If this is Chase Claypool instead of Kenny Golladay, I'd probably make this trade. But it's the Kenny Golladay is the part that I have a problem with.
What if it was like Deontay Johnson?
That's a lot closer. I would still probably take Wilson if it was Deontay Johnson.
All right. Either way, that's probably a decently fair trade. But yeah. Anyways, speaking of that, the next deal. Look, I think Chubb is a really, really good running back. But listen, he's not going to have the ceiling that JT does. You ended up getting JT in a second exchange for Chubb and that first. I love this deal from your perspective. Listen, I love Nick Chubb, but he's an older running back comparatively to JT. You're talking about a 4-year discrepancy. And with Kareem Hunt there, as a win-now running back, with another running back limiting his ceiling, I view it as moving a late RB1 in exchange for a high-end RB1 from a dynasty perspective, and you're basically just swapping a 2022 first for a 2023 second. So I like this one for you.
Right, and that might seem like a steep price to pay for that ceiling factor, right? Because that's really all you're getting in the difference between Chubb and JT is the ceiling and the age, but that's basically what it's worth, right? Because JT has the potential to be the Dynasty 101 in non-superflex, basically, and that Chubb doesn't have that ceiling. He just doesn't. We've seen it at this point in his career. He's now going to be after the season, he's going to be 26, 27 years old. Even if he has a phenomenal season, he still won't be the 101 next year. If JT has a phenomenal season, he might very well be the 101 next year.
Yeah. And you're talking about a straight startup value right now. Like Nick Chubb's what? A mid to late second rounder at best, give or take.
Yeah. That's about where he's going.
And Jonathan Taylor's like a top 5 pick right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's your answer right now. So, I do like that deal for you. Next deal, you ended up sending away Kenny Golladay, Denzel Mims, and a future 2022 second-round pick. And in return, you got Tyler Lockett and Rashad Bateman. And this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal because if I were to rank these assets in this deal, I'd put Bateman at 1, Golladay at 2, Lockett at 3. Mims in a second does not make up that value of you getting 2 of the best 3 players in the deal.
Yeah, I probably would still take Golladay over Bateman in terms of like asset
Dynasty?
value, right? Yeah, right now I would. I want to give Golladay some credit. He's still a talented receiver. He's still somewhat young, so
right,
Bateman hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet, so I don't want to get too carried away with Rashad Bateman. But
let's go back to the first deal then. If that was Bateman instead of Golladay, would you how would you view that deal?
Then I would view it as Wilson. I guess you're right.
Yeah, I would much rather Bateman over Golladay.
I would. Yeah, I guess I probably would prefer Bateman over Golladay. But in terms of immediate production right now, considering he is trying to compete right away, I would say Golladay is probably the more valuable asset compared to him and Bateman. But the fact Golladay and Tyler Lockett isn't a big difference to me. I think that's pretty similar value. Plus, you got, like I said, if you break it down, Golladay and Lockett's equal value, and Bateman for Mims in the 2022 second, that's no contest.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So we can get on. Oh, that was the last deal of the video. But anything else you want to touch up on in the squad, or should we move on to JHeebs?
We can move on to JHeebs.
All right. So JHeebs is a 10-team Superflex league. So he sent his team, and he also has a couple trades that he made in addition to this. So the team, quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, like you're laughing there. Running backs, Kamara, Eckler, Zeke, Gibson. Wide receivers, McLaurin, Woods, Brandon Cooks, Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, Corey Davis in particular. Tight ends, you got Darren Waller, Gerald Everett. And in terms of picks, he has 2/3 in 2022 and then all of his picks in 2023 and 2024. Again, this is a 10-team Superflex. His question is, any improvements that I should make onto my team? So before we get into what improvements he should make, he also sent me a few trades that he made. So you guys should see that on the screen as well. First trade, he ended up sending out Chris Carson, Jalen Reagor, and a 2022 second-round pick in exchange for Austin Eckler. So you guys saw that team on the screen. It is ready to compete now. And guess what? Carson's a fine mid to low end RB2, but Austin Eckler can legitimately win you a league. I love this move from your perspective.
Yeah, this is no contest. Like we're both of the belief that Jalen Reagor and all the receivers that performed like Jalen Reagor their rookie year, they lost a lot of value in the eyes of dynasty players. And even if you still believe in Jalen Reagor as a talent, I still don't think that's enough value to go from Carson to Eckler. And this is a full PPR league too. So the difference between Eckler and Carson is a pretty big difference in a full PPR score.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a 115 target back versus what, like at best a 60 target?
Yeah, like he showed some promise in the passing game, but it's never going to be a feature part of the Seahawks offense to give Carson a bunch of targets.
Yeah, like let me just see here what he actually ended up with last year. Like Chris Carson had 46 targets in 12 games. So if you equate that, 4 more games, that will give him like 60, 65 targets. So yeah, I do agree there. Eckler by a mile. And the next deal, it is a bit closer, but again, considering the fact that you expect that first to be late, given the factor that your team is absolutely stacked, you ended up trading Odell in a first in exchange for McLaurin in the third. I do think Odell in a first is a worthwhile price to pay to upgrade to Terry McLaurin. I believe Terry McLaurin has a legitimate top 8, top 7 type of ceiling this year. And to get that, to try to win the championship now, I do like that move for you.
Plus, I also think Odell's range of outcomes are very wide, right? Like he could be, and I when I say very wide, I don't mean he has like a wide receiver 1 ceiling. I mean, his ceiling is probably a back end wide receiver 1, but his floor is very low. Like his floor is junk bond status after this year. Like he gets another injury and he's wide receiver 60 in ADP. Like he could go right down the crapshoot. So I think McLaurin is just a far safer asset in general. And I think he's going to be a lot better from a actual fantasy production perspective this year than Odell will.
Yep, I fully agree. So then he also adds here any improvements that he should make on his team. Anything that glares out to you while looking at this?
My biggest thing is your wide receiver core doesn't have enough high-end talent, and I would honestly say it doesn't have enough like mid-level talent either, right? Because you have McLaurin and Woods who are going to be great producers for you, but you don't have that extra guy like if you had a T Higgins in this core, then this receiver core looks a lot better. But what I would do is shop one of your back-end quarterbacks. If you can try and get a wide receiver for Derek Carr, Jordan Love, like maybe not Jordan Love because his value is kind of down right now, but if you can shop Derek Carr and get, I would say Robert Woods, but he's already on your team. If you can get like Julio Jones for Derek Carr or somebody in that realm of value and in that realm of like win now type of asset, if you could shop Derek Carr and maybe a young piece and try and get up to, you probably can't get Keenan Allen, but somebody that's a bit of an older receiver, I think that would probably help your team out a lot because it's really the only weakness on your team. You go 4 deep at running back, you go 3 deep on elite quarterbacks, you got an elite tight end. Like it's going to be hard for even if you left this team the way it is right now, you're still going to be among the best teams in your league.
Yep. All right, so we'll get on to the next team in the video, and that's going to be from B. Whitten. It is a 10-team Dynasty Superflex with a tight end premium. And it's a full PPR. So he also says here that quarterback touchdowns are worth 6 points. It's a 0.5 tight end premium. And this is his first Dynasty league. He says that the Akers injury set him back, and this is his current team. Any suggestions on how he can improve? He has all of his picks in addition to this team. So anything stand out to you right away from looking at this?
I would say that this Akers injury obviously hurt your chances of winning the championship because as much as Gibson and Montgomery are good, RB1 and 2, you add Akers to that, and you got a 3-stack of running backs that can really, really help you carry your team. Obviously, you're going to need a couple things to break right, I would say, because it's a super flex league. Your quarterback situation should be okay this year. You got Prescott and Jalen Hurts. Also have Trey Lance on the bench. But Kyle Pitts obviously needs to probably perform this year for you to be in a good position to win the championship. But overall, for this being your first Dynasty league, I think you did a great job. You got a good young team, too. It's not even like you just have youth. Like your youth is in their primes already, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So you're chilling here. This is going to be a team that should really compete. And the main piece of advice I'd say is if you're, let's say, 5-3 to start the season, 6-2 to start the season, you feel like, oh, you know what? There's no real dominant team in this league. I could probably make a push. Then you have your future picks to be able to make that push. You can trade up. I don't know.
You could
Let's
use
say,
acres in that too if you wanted to, right? Like if you wanted to go out and acquire, I'm trying to think, like Christian McCaffrey from like a rebuilding team. If you wanted to float Akers in a first-round pick and see if they take that for Christian McCaffrey, if they still believe in Cam Akers, I don't know if they would, but if they're not, hip to the Achilles injury stuff with running backs, maybe Marlon Mack is performing well, and they're like, oh, Achilles injuries don't mean shit, and you can package Cam Akers in a first-round pick, get up to like a Christian McCaffrey or like a Saquon or something like that. That could be a crazy move that you could make there.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, you're in a good spot. Just be flexible and see how you can adapt this team during the season. So anything else you want to add here? Or should we kick off the video or wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap up the video. I think that was, we got this finished in under 40 minutes. It usually doesn't happen. We're usually over 40, 50, sometimes over an hour. So if you guys did enjoy this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers as soon as possible. We hope to at least get there before the start of the season. So if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to support us in any way, you can go and do so by going to underdogfantasy.com, and you can deposit on Underdog Fantasy using promo code FSE. Link is in the description. And when you sign up using a minimum of $10, you'll get $25 free to play with on the site. And you will also get both of our draft guides totally for free, no cost to you, and they'll help you win your championship. You'll get our rankings, you'll get our busts, our sleepers, some articles talking about strategy and how to do your own fantasy research. You also get our Dynasty rankings. You'll get all of our rookie write-ups and our rookie profiles. There's just so much content on that site. So I highly suggest you go and use our promo code at Underdog Fantasy to get access to all of that. And again, comment down below any league punishment ideas for a chance to be in our listener league and to get a free draft guide if we end up choosing your league punishment. So anything you got to say before we get out of here?
Nah, just enjoy your guys' weekends and peace out.
Peace out.